and welcome to the DIMP Digital Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Appleyard. We are continuing our assault on the greatest games of all time. This is the third and final part, and I'm once again joined by Pac-Man himself, Tom Adcock. Tom, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Friday, excited for the weekend.
Excellent. Well, this is airing on a Sunday, so they won't get that reference. Everyone's going to be miserable when they listen to this. They'll be like, no, it's our Sunday.
I didn't think of that.
So that's alienating viewers.
Don't worry, 5 days to the weekend. So
exactly. Get that hashtagged. The last time on the second part, we went through the fourth and fifth generations. So that included the Sega Mega Drive, the SNES, the PlayStation, the N64 and the Sega Saturn. This week, we're going to tackle the sixth and seventh generations. And as per our regulations, we'll both be picking our top 3 games from each generation, then blasting through our honourable mentions. We have still enforced the rule of 1 game per franchise for the entire process, so you won't see us tripping over any of those. There could be spoilers ahead, so I suggest you switch off if you do not want to get stung with those. But Tom, let's crack on. We arrive in the 6th generation, and this is probably, I think this is probably the most cluttered generation of the lot, as you've got Sega, Nintendo, Sony, we've all got their consoles coming out, and then the newcomers in Microsoft that are all trying to, they sort of come in with the Xbox. The Sega Dreamcast, that's the first one to arrive here in the UK, so September of 1999, Sega released the Dreamcast. Sony's PlayStation 2 was up next, dropping in November of 2000. The Xbox was March 2002. And Nintendo's GameCube arrives last again in May of 2002. So once again, they're late out the blocks on that particular one. But to be honest, this is curtains for Sega in this generation, isn't it? In terms of hardware, the Dreamcast just never really got off the ground, did it?
Yeah, weirdly, it's probably their best console they had in a while as well. I mean, the fans, it still gets spoke about quite highly now. I can't believe there's that discrepancy between the dates. That's never ever going to happen again, is it?
No,
that's crazy.
No, it's become so popular now that I think that.
What is the spread though there? How many years between the first and last?
It's 3 years basically between.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
imagine that now.
Well, imagine this. Well, not imagine, this is the fact. The Dreamcast arrives in September of 1999. By the end of 2002, they discontinue it and stop producing new consoles. So by the time that the GameCube arrives, Sega are already winding down and not producing any new consoles. That's a 3-year life cycle there. That's poor. I think obviously it didn't take off. It didn't get the sales they were envisaging. And I think that's probably due to the fact that developers in particular were sceptical after the Saturn and the 32X add-ons and the CD bolt-ons that they had for the Mega Drive and the Master System. And I think that they lost consumer trust there. They looked to try and get a boost by releasing it earlier, but it just didn't quite pull off.
It just goes to show how new the whole world is still really with gaming, because I think even I know you're obviously quite a bit younger than me, but most people I know, even my nephews, they know the PS2. It's probably not considered a retro console in any way, but you think how different the landscape is with what we're talking about now to today, where everything is micromanaged. Days release dates are within lines, minutes of each other. Yeah, really, you're just not going to get these dates anymore. It just fascinates me.
No, I mean, I had a PlayStation.
How did it go for you? What did you have?
Yeah, no, I just had a PlayStation 2. That is all I had. And truth be told, I used to look over at the Dreamcast and be envious. For whatever reason, it always seemed, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it.
It looked good, didn't it? It was a good looking console.
I remember they had, I think it was WWF, it might have been called Royal Rumble, I can't remember what it's called now, but you could have 6 people in the ring. And the standard for the PlayStation 2, is to only have 4 people in the ring. So just in my little brain, seeing stuff like that, I was like, wow, that must be really powerful. But it always just seemed out of my reach. But I don't actually remember anyone in my group of friends actually owning one. Did anyone in your sort of circle have a
Mate, I had one.
You had one?
Yeah, I can't remember what order I got these consoles in, but yeah, I think I got the Dreamcast probably as it was almost winding down, because there's a fella at my work who used to not modern, but just copy all the games for me. So I had a right result, because there was some pretty decent games on that. So I remember having a keyboard. My little brother used to. That was the first forays into internet forums for us as well. ASL and all that bollocks chat, and then you'd get someone to buy it on some rubbish chat, and then just slag them off. It's like, what is this? How's this?
It's all new though, isn't it?
First online game for me as well. Choo Choo Rocket.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Because that was the first sort of home console internet play.
Yeah.
Had a web browser, and it still just did not work. I
think, like you said, it was communal confidence by that point. The console was sound, good games. It had everything going for it, really. It was just no one was interested. They'd let too many people down, and I think by this point, PlayStation were just the dominant force. Everyone else was just hanging on to their coattails, really.
Yeah, I mean, Sony go from strength to strength, don't they? They've already got a great loyal customer base due to the success of the PlayStation. They chuck in backwards compatibility, so you can play all your PlayStation 1 games on there. And I think what the big factor is that is overlooked sometimes, that you could play DVDs on it as well.
Yeah, that's it. It was launched at that time, wasn't it, when DVDs were just getting big. I forget these things, but they really sort of nailed it, haven't they? Yeah,
I mean, they're on to a win of this one, and it ended up being the best-selling console to date. So that shifted over 150 million units worldwide. Unbelievable stuff from Sony.
I'm surprised that the optical discs Nintendo had didn't take off, if I'm honest.
Well,
sort of 2-inch discs. What were they thinking again? Pointless.
Yeah, I mean, I had a PlayStation again. I looked over at the GameCube and I used to think, it gave that perception, the fact that why are we using 2-inch discs? In my head again at the time, as a sort of a younger kid, I used to think, well, how can that in any way match this beast that I've got in the PlayStation 2? It's playing all my DVDs, it's playing all these great games, and that on that tiny disc, they're gonna give me the same experience. I don't think so. That's just the perception I had. It was probably wrong, in many aspects, but.
Yeah, God knows, mate. I don't know what they're thinking. What are they getting out of it? Surely, just on a production level, it's cheaper just to go with like standard discs. Like, why?
Standard
Stop
issue.
being difficult. Just some things are okay. Just to go with the norm.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only that; it's also to develop for. I imagine it was probably a bit more harder, less. I don't know the specs for it, but I don't imagine it was any easier to develop on the GameCube. And I think what happened here as well is that Sony still had a lot of third-party support, and I distinctly remember playing the likes of Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City and San Andreas throughout the whole generation, looking over at the GameCube and seeing there was very little sort of games out there for a mature audience. Now, at this time, I'm coming into my teens, so being able to play an 18-plus game that's swearing and killing, all that sort of stuff, puts you sort of in the cool crowd at school, and you could rattle off a story about how many people you'd sniped on GTA. If you came in harping on about Mario and Zelda to school, you'd get a sideways look from people. They wouldn't be interested. I mean, now, you was a bit older at this time. Was that whole obsession with playing mature games, was that relevant to you? Because you was obviously a bit older anyway, so it probably wasn't as quote-unquote cool for you to be playing a game that you were entitled to. For me, it was, because I was still quite young.
Didn't really ever give in to peer pressure, mate. Sort of forged my own path, like beefy. No, I don't know, mate. No, it didn't really. I was sort of just... I probably had almost all the consoles in this generation, and...
Xbox?
No, almost. I said sort of 3 of the 4.
3 of the 4. It's not a bad effort.
No, it's not. And probably all the different times. I don't really remember like having them cross too much, if I'm honest. No. I think I probably went PlayStation 2. I can't remember, but yeah. And no, to answer your question, I was quite content. I was at work and no one gave a shit what you was playing. And to be fair, I think Nintendo themselves had some pretty good exclusives on this. I'm not going to sort of name check because some of them might be in my top 3.
Sure.
But
towards the end, we can go through some honourable mentions. And
absolutely. Yeah. Should we crack on? Or
I just wanted to quickly mention the Xbox because this is their first venture into it, and although they don't get near the PS2 in terms of...
Do you remember it being released at all?
No, it just didn't. I don't know. They churned out some decent sales, but I personally never really was that interested. It gave birth to something like the Halo franchise, and I think towards the end, once Dreamcast was gone, they then became sort of the market leader in terms of online gaming. And I think the online gaming accolade is still correct to this day, and they're seen as, when you want to go and play console games online, I don't think anyone does it as good as Xbox and Xbox Live. And I think having Microsoft behind them probably gave them quite a bit of a boost in terms of a casual audience. Because if you see something with that stamped on the side of it, and you don't really know the difference between Sony or a GameCube or a Nintendo, if you see Microsoft, you've been around computers, you'll know that's probably going to be good bit of kit, but I never owned one, and only one of my mates did. And I just hated the controller to start with. I remember it just being too big, and I had a couple of blasts on Halo, and that was about it really.
Yeah, I remember a mate showing me Fable and sort of trying to sell it to me as the new Zelda, and I was like, yeah, this does look pretty good, to be fair, mate. But I was just like, what is this fucking huge brick you've got in your front room? It was massive, that thing.
Yeah, it was an absolute monster. But
yeah,
it's a cluttered generation, and it's good that you managed to play at least 3 of the 4, or own them, and obviously have a go on the Xbox. But for me, I was solely in the PlayStation camp, and I think I had access to a GameCube and an Xbox, as I said, but Dreamcast didn't get a look in. I was too busy on my PlayStation 1 by the time that released, so maybe they brought it out too early. We'll never know. They're gone now from the hardware department, so rest in peace for Sega. But let's crack on to the games, our top 3, and I think we can start with our only mutual title from this generation, and that is Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now, as you know, as I was speaking to you, I was really torn between choosing this and GTA 3 with the one sort of franchise rule in. And I remember GTA 3 being the reason I wanted a PlayStation 2. And when I finally got one for Christmas, I was definitely not disappointed. I played GTA, I played GTA London, I played GTA 2 all on the PC. And I dreamed of this becoming a 3D world somehow, like you'd be able to walk around, and GTA 3 made that a reality, and it was a pioneer in the open world games, and now you get GTA clones and whatever. But Vice City has to take the title for me, just because it refined what was already working really well there, and it's added so much more detail. I mean, why would you choose Vice City over Grand Theft Auto 3? Did you play it more, or was it just that you thought it was an overall better game?
Yeah, it was a real tough call for me as well, if I'm honest, because GTA 3 amazing, and it's got that, everything's new, it's a bit of a wow factor. So to go for the second one, which, like you said, refines everything. I think it was the first one to have the main character speak, wasn't it? It had a much better soundtrack. It was all set in like the 80s, very reminiscent of Scarface, wasn't it? Really,
Carlito's Way, and it's nailed the whole setting. But yeah, like you mentioned, the voice actors. You've got Ray Liotta, one of my favourite actors, doing the main character's voice, Tommy Vercetti. Danny Dyer pops up in it. I
remember you saying this offline. Who was he?
Kent Paul. No, Kent Paul or Paul Kent. I can't remember his name now. It's one of those two ways round. I think he owned the club that was there. He popped up in it. You had other appearances from Burt Reynolds, Jenna Jameson, Bill Finchner, who's from Entourage and Prison Break, Dennis Hopper. These are great names.
That's spectacular, isn't it?
I mean, to get that into a video game at that time is fantastic. And
I think that's one of the things, isn't it? It's like, I remember, I've got vivid memories of just driving around like by the seafront, sunset in that beautiful like orange sunset, Toto Africa playing in my like convertible, and just thinking like, Christ, this is in a game. Like it is. It was unbelievable, to be honest.
Yeah, although GTA 3 was good, I don't think the atmosphere and the setting was as spot on as what Grand Theft Auto Vice City was. Plus all those extras we've mentioned, and that's, I think, the reason why it carries it through. And funny enough, I didn't actually buy this game for about a year after it was released. Piper had it, and obviously I used to go around his house quite a lot, and we got about 25% of the way through, and I think we got stuck, and then I didn't bother until much later. But when I finally played the game in full, I was hooked, and despite it being very similar to Grand Theft Auto 3, this had more than enough to sort of hold my interest. And you know how much I hate spoilers, yeah? And for anyone that's listening, I cannot stand them. I really do hate them. I was reading a walkthrough for this game one time just to find... I don't know what... I didn't have the game at the time. I think I was trying to help Piper get through, and I accidentally read what the ending was. So I knew that this Vance character betrays you towards the end, and that's sort of the main twist. So I was livid when I first found it out. But I must say, the game was so good, I did not even think of that when I was playing through it and going through the story. It was that good that my obsession with not knowing the endings and stories just didn't come into play. I enjoyed it so much, and I just spent hours and hours just driving around on a moped, just collecting the money you'd get from the what's it called, property purchasing. Them out. I used to love just doing that, and it was just so good. Like we said, it's got great influences from Scarface, Carlito's Way, and that whole 80s setting. There's been nothing else like it. There's nailed that type of sort of era for me.
I quite like the departure as well. Like, most of the games jump between Liberty City and Los Santos. I like the fact that this one is that sort of curveball. I mean,
Miami. type.
Is it actually set in Miami? It's not.
No,
is
no, it's called Vice City. So it's,
oh, it is.
again,
Right.
Yeah, so that's their version of Miami.
Why would you name your city Vice City? Instantly, you're asking for trouble, aren't you?
Miami Vice. They're trying to play on words. Yeah, the cops. They've started themselves on the bad foot. The mayor, whoever can't have that sort of effort at it. But
I'd like the next one. You know, I mean, I know there was that Vice City, Grand Theft Auto London, but I'd love the next one to be, you know, just set somewhere else with, you know, then that's a whole concept, all the art maybe, and all the music and characters all to be set, you know, somewhere else, anywhere else. I love the fact that on the new one, in fact, I'm just playing this now. I love that part where you go out of Los Santos and you go back to that north. I think it's based on North Dakota
town.
I don't know, something, a new little concept like that for me would sit brilliantly. Have it set in potentially Vice City and maybe then another city, and you can have two interacting or two overlapping storylines that then converge somewhere. I think something like that would be great. And I think it just shows you this game can just go anywhere and pretty much do anything. Yeah,
it's got great potential, hasn't it?
I can't wait.
So Vice City, it beats GTA 3 for me just because of the additions and the improvements it made. And obviously we haven't mentioned San Andreas, but I think it beats GTA San Andreas, despite that adding a lot more, just because the 80s settings and the references were much more in tune with... Probably more in tune with the films and the television programmes I'd watched. Like, I didn't watch a typical sort of early 90s gangster films. Not gangster films, sorry, like gang-banging films. Like San Andreas was based around that sort of culture. So that didn't resonate with me as much as Vice City.
Totally agree, yeah. And I think for me, I don't know, I think it was two things for me. One, maybe a bit of overkill, because it was the third game on one generation, which you're not going to get that again, I wouldn't have thought. And two, I think maybe it just went a bit... I don't know, because the new one's got a lot of detail and I kind of like it, but this one you could go to the gym and eat, and I don't know, it just kind of, it was a bit much. I think San Andreas Vice City was a perfect mix for me. I think that's a good note to leave it on. It's a great game, and that's basically our best Grand Theft Auto game they've revealed, because we can't go back and pick Grand Theft Auto for any more of them. So there you go, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now the two games that since I've met you that you've harped on about from day one is Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which I've done now. Done that on the 3DS. Completed that, so I've got that off the list. And the other one is Shadow of the Colossus. And I'll admit happily now, well, not happily, but this one completely passed me by, and I had very little idea of what it was. And I honestly don't really remember it coming out at the time. I don't remember there being much hype, but then again, I was probably... so addicted with Pro Evolution Soccer, this slid by. You're going to have to drive most of this one because I've not played it. I mean, I'm planning to go back and play Ico, which was their first one, and also Shadow of the Colossus when PlayStation Now arrives in Europe. So if you can refrain from any spoilers when you go through this, but, Shadow of the Colossus, talk to me. Shadow of the Colossus, Team Ico, the guys who make it, so names based on their first game.
Arrogant.
He's arrogant. Only made 2 games. But so single player action adventure game. Essentially, it strips down a game to its bare basics. You're one guy. There's no NPCs. There's no dungeons. There's no one to interact with. There's no upgrades of weapons. It sounds awful. I think there's 2 cutscenes in the whole game. But this isn't a mobile game. This is a full console title. It's fantastic. So you're one guy. All you've got weapon-wise is a sword and bow and arrow. You've got a horse. As I say, that's all open to you from the beginning. The whole world's open to you from the beginning. You start at like a central temple. You're trying to... This is no spoilers. It tells you this in the first 30 seconds of the game. You've got... a dead companion. You don't know if it's your sister, your lover, whatever. It's not explained. You're trying to get her to return to life. She's had some cursed fate. You've taken her to this cursed land where this disembodied voice tells you that if you slay 16 colossuses, or colossi, I think, you can then awaken her, but there will be a cost for this. And that's the game. You basically have a sword that when you point it to the sky, the sun reflects. It will tell you a general direction to go to meet these colossi.
And they're big beasts, colossi, aren't they?
They're
Massive,
they're a mix.
Monsters
Some of them are like as big as a Canary Wharf tower block.
Jesus.
5 times as big, in fact. Other ones will be more to like animal size.
Yeah.
Some of them will ignore you and just try and shake you off. They don't want to engage you or anything. Some of them will actively like hunt you as soon as you enter their domain. You'll usually have to like, as I say, there's nothing to interact with, but there'll usually be some puzzles in getting to the Colossus. It's not straightforward, even though the sword will give you as the crow flies directions. You'll normally have to go around the houses to get there. And the Colossus are a puzzle in themselves. You'll have to use your environment to take them down. Climbing up them is a puzzle in itself. And then you'll have to find out their weak spots and take these absolute monsters down. It probably sounds awful, but it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I've never seen a game tell so much story with so little actual dialogue. The setup is amazing. The atmosphere is fantastic. The music, it's unbelievable, mate. Honestly, I know I harp on about it, and it's true. I mean, it was a much more popular game than Ico, but that was because that one literally, apart from the critics, it just went completely under the radar here. And this one, they did aggressively sort of market it a bit more, but I don't know. A lot of it's not everyone's cup of tea, I guess. And again, most people have probably missed it, but it's Japanese. It's weird as obviously, but. It's fucking amazing, and it will definitely stick with you for a while, in the way the best films do. All best forms of media do.
I mean, is it a game with a lot of replayability? Would you go back, or is it one of those ones that you sort of play it through once and you think that's the pinnacle experience, I don't really need to be going back to play this because I've got everything I need out of that? Or
it's a good question,
because sometimes when you go through things in the second time, it's never the same as far as I'm concerned. I've
played it through twice. And I would say the short answer is no, because there's no upgrades. You don't get a new costume. You don't get new weapons when you play through it. I think they might have like a speed run thing they do, like where you just literally fight each boss. Perhaps I think that's the only extra. But I'm telling you, like, I've not done it myself, but there are like forums on the internet and like a fan base for this game that it defies logic. You've got people that have been playing this game to death, been like contacting the development team to get like the beta code to like find Colossuses or Colossi that have like been taken out. They've literally deconstructed this game to it must be 15 years old now, and they're just well, it's not, it's 10, but they've never stopped playing it. And I think once you play it, I mean, I know it's going to have aged and stuff. I know there's a HD remake on PS3 which
that's the
hopefully you'll play it
with, because that's the one that'll be streamed off of the internet.
I really do feel like it's something you can't talk to someone and about how good this game is until you've played it. Like, I've got friends and they're basically all Pro Evo based and Call of Duty based, but it was like a weird time where we all kind of converged to play this game together. There was a whole room of us. It's definitely a single player adventure, but just by chance, lots of people will come around to watch it and take these monsters down, and now we kind of get together, we'll have a drink, and often a conversation will float back to this when we get onto computer games.
I said I'm going to try and get through it on the PlayStation now when that finally comes in Europe. Well, we'll get through it. I'll definitely be picking it up, so I'll wait to hear my thoughts on it, and hopefully I don't shit on it and you won't be upset, but you've put it up on this pedestal, so it better live up to it.
It's there, mate. It's up there.
Right, let's move on to one of my ones. My second one, in fact. Again, no order. Just mention that. These are just reading the games off. But Fahrenheit is one of mine for the PlayStation 2. And it was called Indigo Prophecy in the United States. No idea why, but I managed to get hold of this quite late in the generation, just from a recommendation at a forum that I go on, and I absolutely love this game. It was like nothing I'd ever played before. The developers themselves kind of labelled it as like an interactive film, That's the way they sort of, it is a game, but it's an interactive film in the way they're sort of doing the cinematics. But to be honest, it wasn't far off the mark. You do spend a lot of your time walking around, exploring the environment. But the key thing is you get to make decisions and go through different dialogue choices. I'm not going to try and describe the control scheme in detail, but you barely use the face buttons. You're mainly using the left stick to move and the right stick to interact with objects.
So I don't know anything about this. What is this, like open world? Is it?
No, it's not open world. It's a story, like an A to Z story in there, and you play the part of 3 people, but it's more about how you interact with the environment, how you interact with people, and what decisions you make. So as I was saying, like the control scheme, when you walk up to a door, you don't just press A and walk through it. You kind of have to push the right stick out and then twist it as though your arm was going out and doing it. It's those sort of interactions.
So is it first or third person?
It's all third person. It's pretty much. I think it is all third person actually. I think there is a first person section in it, but it's a very small part of the game. But it's mainly in a third person style, and it's all the camera angles are set up in like a TV show. It's very slow paced, which I quite like, and the action scenes are basically quick time events. The premise of the game is that you take control of these 3 characters, and one of the first character you take hold of, his name's Lucas, and the game opens up and this poor chap's in a trance. He's like in a weird trance in a diner toilet. He gets up and he stabs this other poor bastard to death in there. So he just stabs him to death, kills him, and then he snaps out of it. He wakes up, and he's obviously mortified. He's over the top of this bloke. There's blood everywhere, and he's got blood in his hands. He's got a knife in his hand, and he's like, "What the hell's just happened?" He's got no idea what has happened here. And from there on, it just snaps you out the game, and it goes, right, now you go off and do whatever you want. So you are then left to decide how you're going to go through that and get out of that situation. You can run straight out the toilet if you want to. You can just go right, bin it, run straight out the toilet. You end up bumping into a waitress and you scramble out the back door, or you can take a different route. You can clean all the blood off you, wash your face, hide the body, mop up all the blood on the floor. Then you go outside and you're a bit more calm, so you don't bump into anyone. You can then sit down at the table, sort of finish your dinner to try not raise any suspicion.
But how are you doing this then? Is it like a point and click, or is it?
No, it's like the left stick you move, and then the right stick, as I said, does all the animation bits.
But how are you getting these options then? I don't understand.
Well, say the door's there, you just run out of it.
You can just do all these.
That triggers it. That's gone. Or you can walk up to the body and then pick him up and drag him using the different options. It's pretty open about what you can do. It gives you plenty of options to do, and it's really interesting because you can play the same scene over and over again just to figure out what happens and what the different sort of outcomes are, and it leaves it down to you how you do it. The weird thing is that you play 2 other characters who are actually detectives that are investigating this very murder. So if you end up bumbling out the toilet, like I said, covered in blood, and then you take control of the detectives, when you're going through the investigation part, walking around, looking over the diner, there's a lot more evidence they've got to go on. So obviously witness accounts,
right?
The body, the knife, that's all left there, and you can collect it. It's a bit of a weird setup because you're essentially trying to catch yourself. Two-thirds of the game, but it all comes together in the end. It gets a little bit supernatural. But
do all your decisions really converge in the same place, or are there branching storylines and different endings, or is it?
There are different endings, so there's different endings depending on what decisions you've made. There's certain things that you'll miss if you don't do other things, and it affects your journey as you go throughout the entire thing. And it's just really clever the way.
Is there any game that because I have never heard of this game? Is there anything you can compare it to, or?
I would compare it to something like Heavy Rain. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Yeah, I've played it briefly.
Yeah, so it's the same people that made this.
Right, okay.
So this was their first one. So they made Fahrenheit first and then come out of Heavy Rain. I think they've done Beyond Two Souls was their latest one, which I haven't played. But that's essentially what you're dealing with, that sort of type of gameplay.
Yeah.
You're wandering around, there's all sorts of things to do. But, I just was appealed by the decision making it allowed me to do, and it's one of the most, at the time it still is one of the most unique games I've ever played, and that's what made it stand out against others in this generation.
This sounds like one of the first games that's not like a top 10 blockbuster that you've kind of played and enjoyed, would you say? Because I know now that you are on the hunt for little gems and things all the time, and you'll play almost anything through to completion, which is good. But it seems like before that, when you didn't have access to so many games and stuff, it was more just the, either games that just happened on your lap or just, the big games, really.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
this one's just sort of come out of left field. I'm like, right, what is? I've not even heard of this.
Well, that's poor research on your part, but yeah, maybe. I think I've played a lot of other games, but normally the best ones, the top 10
that's
games,
true.
They're there for a reason because they're usually better. But this one just, for me, just stood out for that entire generation. It was just so unique, and I couldn't get enough of it. The story got a little bit weird, but the journey of getting there was fantastic. I couldn't get. I love the controls of just wandering around, doing all these different interactions with the environment, and sometimes you just take 10 minutes just walking around the flat, just messing around, like
seeing what you can do. And
it's really good. It's really good, and it adds like a 24 split screen cinematic that goes on. So that time when you're in the diner at the very beginning, there's a cop that's sitting at the table. And every sort of minute or so, it'll cut back to him sort of looking suspiciously, and then eventually he gets up and starts walking in. So you can't just fuck about in the toilet for ages to clean up. You've got to get out of there eventually, and you've got to be out of the diner by the time he does that. So you're under pressure in certain situations. But a lot of people probably haven't played it. I think it's just been re-released actually, like a brushed up HD version, as they tend to call them these days, on the PC. I think it's even on handhelds now. So
I'm going to be sure to look into this. It's one that's completely passed me by.
Definitely look it up. It's a great little game. Let's crack on to your only GameCube entry here.
Yep.
And your final game, actually. It's Resident Evil Remake. And this is the only game that wasn't released, on the PS2 that we have on both of our lists. So it's the only non-PS2 game here. So it's an exclusive. You love the original. And then you've also got the highly acclaimed Resident Evil 4, which came out on this generation as well. So how does... And that was critically acclaimed as well, Resident Evil 4. It's sort of seen as a pioneer now, the over-the-shoulder shooter. How does a remake of the original get this much credit and take the title?
It's whatever. I can't wait for you to hopefully play this, because it's how a remake should be done. I mean, the upscaling. I mean, I'm not a massive, advocate of all best graphics, make a best game. Like I think most people are.
Yeah.
Or not, most people who know anything are in the same camp really anyway, but this game, Christ, it looks absolutely beautiful, beautiful. And the original, its time was okay, but looking back, it is a blocky mess really. So they've improved everything, aesthetically. It looks amazing, it sounds amazing. Again, because of those things in a game like this where the atmosphere is key, it just makes it so terrifying, really. It's just, it nails it. That mansion's never ever looked so good. The game itself, I think, is about, I'm sort of paraphrasing and putting this a bit out of thin air, but I think it's something like 45% different from the original. So you've got that mix that what you're getting, you're going to love it if you love the original, but you're getting essentially a brand new game.
It's fresh enough to
absolutely. Do you know what I mean? Why more people haven't... I mean, I know why more people haven't done it. It's a lot cheaper just to port the original game and probably give it a scrub up. But putting this much love into a game that, I suppose like an update of a film like Ocean's 11, if you give something this much jazz, you can take it way above the original. There's certain games out there that are just begging for a remake, and this... they just hit the nail on the head with this. It's absolutely fantastic.
Strange decision that it was only on the GameCube.
Well, this is what I was going to say earlier. I think this was like Nintendo's last ditch to kind of, get exclusives and actually sort of, butter up third-party developers. They got themselves an exclusivity deal with Capcom to port all the existing Resident Evil, so you've got all of them, and then do maybe 2 or I think 3 new ones. So you had this, you had which I guess is considered new. You've got Resident Evil 0, which is the prequel set before this game, and then, as you said a minute ago, Resident Evil 4 as well. Really, all of them are really good. I mean, it's arguably, you could say, Resident Evil 4, because it is essentially made a new genre of game. But I think now, with the kind of mess that's become of those more action-orientated ones, a lot of people seem to be harping back to this one, like the pure Resident Evil experience, and it's still, it's the essential Resident Evil and probably the essential survival horror. It's never ever been beaten. That mansion setting, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know,
tank controls, mate.
Tank controls, but I mean,
they add to it. They're out of date.
I don't know. Yeah, they are. But the thing is, it's you got that sort of set camera angle. You got, you know, there's because of that, you got things blocking your field of vision. You got those tight, horrible controls that, you know, because the zombies, they're the slow ones. So having that kind of tank control, you know, you're constantly having to try and get yourself out of tight situations. I think it kind of works, but that's probably because, you know, I didn't know any different back then. If I played it fresh now, I'd want new controls, which I know on the new one that's been released on the HD consoles. Yeah. They've kind of changed it. I've heard mixed things about it. Apparently, you kind of spin around like a Subbuteo character.
Quick,
but I don't know which one's better. I mean, if you play it, you can let me know. But yeah, I mean, survival horror at its absolute best.
There you go. That is the Resident Evil remake, GameCube only, and takes a title over Resident Evil 4, which a lot of people liked. I had a crack at that, but it didn't quite work for me. Did you not like the sort of action route then, or did you I mean, at the time you must have.
Oh, loved it, mate. Yeah,
was it just not Resident Evil as you knew it, because you'd had obviously 2 and 3, which were
I think even then, when Resident Evil 4 was new, fresh, and like highly acclaimed, and I was excited, I think I still knew instantly. I liked the sort of the pacing of the original Resident Evils. I like the fact that you'd have like 30-minute bouts of no action. You just, you know, but very cleverly, just with like notes or, you know, a shadow behind a window, it would just build
tense moments.
And it would build and build and build and build. And I'll tell you what else I really like is that it's a fluid like mansion. You know, there were boss battles, but they could appear any time. You would never know. I really like the way they've done it. I don't think many games do this. You know, there was no chapters. It wasn't like you get to the end of a chapter, here's your boss, done. It was like
one playthrough, one sort of area.
Exactly, one area. You wouldn't know most of the time. You know, it might kind of mention that there's this creature or something, but you know, 2 or 3 hours gameplay beforehand, all of a sudden you walk in a room, there it is, and you're like, Jesus Christ. And then, you know, you'd go again, you wouldn't know, you never knew what was coming, you know, constantly surprising you, constantly scaring you, and puzzles are a bit maybe out of place. You know, it was a bit odd that, you know,
why it's in a mansion.
Exactly. And to be honest, it only gets weirder with those games. You've got puzzles in a police station in Resident Evil 2. It's bizarre, but if you can overlook that part, you're laughing really. So it gets my nod over the more action orientated ones. And as we know from playing 6, it became, was it 5, whatever, it just became an absolute mess, didn't it? And it's a shame when you get such a well loved franchise kind of now losing its way somewhat.
Need to just reboot, I think. Or maybe not. Well, I think a reboot's in order, because they've got the storyline's just a mess now as well.
Yeah,
the same characters going through all these different Z viruses and whatnot's going on. You think, right, just bin it and go back to the beginning, and then you can start a whole fresh story. You can build it around this. You can go back to your roots and go that way.
I don't think anyone's going to. Yeah, I don't think really people have got. You know, I don't know. I think sometimes companies just think the characters mean more than they do. Perhaps, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they could start this again and do something good with it, but I think now the damage might already be done. But let's end on a high note. Resident Evil Remake, I'll be picking that up because it's been remastered. I think they've now called it the Resident Evil Remake Remaster. Is now on Xbox One, PC and PlayStation 4, so I'm going to try and get my hands on that, and it's at a very reasonable price, so I'm going to give that a playthrough and see what I've been missing all these years. My final game, and the final game for the 6th generation, top 3 from the pair of us, is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Now, there was always going to be one Tony Hawk's game on one of these lists. It's going to crop up on one of our lists somewhere, but to me, this is the best one of the series, number 3. I played 1 and 2 to death and still had the want or, you know, the need to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. You had all the brilliance from the first 2 ones here, polished up as usual, as you'd expect for another sequel, and it added what I think was a great little gameplay mechanic that changed the way you could play Tony Hawk's, and it was called the Revert. And basically, it allowed you to continue your combo after doing like a half-pipe vert trick. So you'd come down, spin your board, and then go into a manual, then go up and grind.
Yeah.
Basically, man, you could combo almost indefinitely if you played your cards right, because before, once you went on a half pipe, it was just sort of a one combo move down, but now you could start off with a combo from there, then flow into a manual, go up, grind, then go in all sorts of places. And they upgraded all the environments. They were absolutely massive. They had more unique challenges. The worlds were much bigger, as I said. The soundtrack, again, I don't think they've ever had a bad soundtrack, the Tony Hawk's games. And I think I actually completed the story mode or the campaign mode with every single skater that was available, as well as my sort of own Joey Apps skater as well.
That's ridiculous.
That is, isn't it? That is a lot of time I've spent. I knew everything like the back of my hand as well.
The thing is, once you knew them, once you could do the task, you could always do it, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You could just absolutely annihilate it. But
I just loved it. I just could not stop playing it. And
did you play multiplayer much, or
a little bit? Yeah, I think you could play it online, but I never managed to do that. But I played it local multiplayer. But again, my hatred for losing. Sort of didn't want to play the horse game and lose that.
I used to love that. Yeah.
I just couldn't handle the humiliation of losing, so it was mainly just me just riding around with Bam Margera. And actually, probably based on the amount of I played the Tony Hawk series, I went and I used to actually try and skateboard when I was at that sort of age.
What due to the game?
Yeah. I just loved it, and I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, watch the X Games on Channel 5. It really just inflamed like my love for skateboarding. And even to this day, if the X Games is on, I will put it on and watch it, because I'm still interested in to see how they do. But superb games, and I think that finishes up the 6th generation. We've got some honourable mentions to go through. Max Payne, I love the storytelling on that, and the bullet time sort of feature that was made popular by the Matrix films, and then this brought it into games. Pro Evolution Soccer, the first 6 were fantastic. I bloody loved Pro Evolution Soccer, and it was definitely the definitive football experience. Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3. That's probably about it, really. As I said, Pro Evolution Soccer zapped up a lot of my time. I was getting them every year and playing those, so there wasn't really a great deal that I managed to get my hands on apart from those. I was quite happy with just playing that for most of the year. What about you?
Yeah, Dreamcast, I would say Shamu. I don't know if you heard of that. Shamu 1 and 2, fantastic. I think there's a lot of noise about trying to finish that on the consoles now, and I think there is. I think they're going to get it done, which would be amazing. Wow. Crazy Taxi, brilliant game. Do you remember that?
I played that in the arcade. That was fantastic. Was that an arcade game first?
Yeah, it was an arcade game. Yeah, little steering wheel. Yeah, probably one of the last sort of decent arcade games. GameCube, I don't know if you remember Rogue Squadron, the Star Wars game. I think that was almost like, it was quite a system seller. Had all the classic locations from the old the films.
Star Wars though, isn't it? You know what my situation is with that.
Yes, enjoying it. No, but yeah, genuinely really, really good game. Luigi's Mansion, the Mario Kart was good on that. Wind Waker, Zelda was obviously a good point. Eternal Darkness, I think you guys have spoke about it on the podcast. Really good sort of Resident Evil clone. PlayStation, I have to agree with the Pro Evo is fantastic. Ico, as you've already mentioned, the GTAs are all really good.
Sure.
Japanese game Okami, bit of a Zelda-esque game, really good. And I guess that's it. I didn't really touch the Xbox, so all honourable mentions.
I'd say Halo, but I never played it at that time. I only recently played it on the Master Chief Collection, so it'd be cheating to put that in.
Can't have that.
So scrapped. So here we are. We've arrived at the 7th generation and our final stop for the greatest games of all time. Sega, they're off, as you said, they're off the map now in terms of consoles. It's just left to Sony's PlayStation 3, Microsoft's Xbox 360, and Nintendo's Wii. Now, this time, Microsoft are first out the gates. We get the 360 in December of 2005. The next is the Wii, which is December 2006. And Sony, uncharacteristically, lagging behind and don't get the PlayStation 3 out until March of 2007. That's to the PAL audience. So I remember it being delayed in Europe for whatever reason. I think it's to do with the Blu-ray conversions and stuff. So it's delayed even longer. So March 2007, we don't get access to that here. And as soon as I found out that the PlayStation 3 was going to be retailing at £425, I washed my hands of Sony. So those years of the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 flushed away. I went out. I remember I went to Game Station. I snapped up a Xbox 360 for £300. I think it had Forza 2, maybe the original Forza. I can't remember. It might have been Forza 2 and Gears of War and an extra controller. £300 done. That for me, it was just a massive mistake to retail that high. And the justification was that it's got a Blu-ray player, but Blu-ray, even today, I don't think is as popular as what the DVD. Certainly back then, DVD was still ruling because Blu-ray was an upgrade, but it was just too expensive. What did you make of all this? Did you? I mean, we'll go on to the Wii in a second, but particularly in Sony's situation, what was happening there?
Mate, I think they just got greedy, didn't they? Like, yeah, it was a decent console, but charging that much and expecting people to wait around, it's just, people are fickle, aren't they? I mean, you're only as good as your sort of current console, I guess, really. People aren't going to, well, maybe Nintendo fanboys like me, but other than that, you're going to get binned. And the price and the timing just cost them. And Xbox or Microsoft just learned from all their mistakes, got it out early this time, absolutely beefed up and nailed the online experience.
Sure.
I remember my friend showing me it, and same as you, similar to you. Anyway, I was just sold there and then went out and got one, and knowing that the franchise are already coming out, like the classic games.
You already had next gen, nearly 2 years before,
and it was a huge upgrade, wasn't it? The HD graphics, I remember seeing Gears of War, the advert, and just thinking, Jesus, this does look good, and the sort of when that bit where they duck down and run, that sort of mechanic. I mean, shocking now, really, but at the time, fantastic. And I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and for a good 2 years of it, I became a complete online gamer with this. Me and my friends, me and randoms, absolutely loved it. I only really played the PlayStation 3 right at the very, very tail end of the generation. To a lesser extent than you as well, for me.
Yeah, I mean, I eventually borrowed one to catch up on the exclusive I'd missed, but it was right at the very end. And despite the slow start, I mean, I must mention this, despite the slow start, when the dust settled, they'd actually beaten the 360 in terms of sales, and I think... Yeah,
it shocks me, really. I don't know anyone who really... The vast majority of people I know were all...
Had a 360,
yeah, absolutely.
So strange. I think maybe the delay over here was an extra sort of 3-4 months, like on top of the already late release for the normal US audience. Just might have killed them off over here.
You think that if they'd got it out first, they probably could have shut down Microsoft there or thereabouts.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, they had a lot of exclusive games. Looking back, if you look back on the library, the exclusive games were fantastic. The online game was there as well, but it was free. So obviously that's a bit of ammunition everyone used to use. And eventually, when it did drop in price and become in line, that obviously is what's triggered their sales. But surprisingly, we had the most hardware sales of the lot. And I think that, this is my opinion on it, I think that the fact is that people who were not even gamers had a Wii console. They were cheap or cheaper. They had mass market appeals with titles like Wii Sports and Wii Fit. We as gamers, though, we haven't even got one Wii top 3 game between us here. But I think the fact that they just managed to get into this sort of untapped market, casual market, just carried them through in terms of sales. As a gamer, though, what did you think of the Wii overall? Because you were a big Nintendo fan.
Yeah, it really did pass me by, mate. I mean, I had one very early on to play. Twilight Princess is the Zelda title that got ported over from the GameCube on release day, and had that, binned it. I think my girlfriend at the time then bought one, and Wii Fit Trainer and all of that shit. But and to be fair, retrospectively, I think it had some really, really good games. The Galaxy games, and
I'm playing it at the moment.
And a couple of Zeldas and something Chronicles I've just heard about. Apparently, it's really good. I mean,
Metroid Prime trilogy.
That was. Oh yeah, it finished up on there, didn't it?
Yeah, they done like a remake of it.
It had good games, but I think they kind of sold out, didn't they? They went down that casual route, and the people got it. I think their software sales would tell a different story.
Yeah. I think the most popular game's Wii Sports.
Yeah,
bundled with every single console.
Exactly.
They made a bucket load of cash out of it, to be fair to them.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, they probably weren't going to compete with the other two, so it made sense at the time. It's probably cost them in retrospect, but
it's massively underpowered, wasn't it?
Yeah,
compared to the other two. Was it even HD?
No.
Was it? No, it wasn't. Awful decision, but it weren't, because they made a shitload of money out of it and sold so many of them and put Wii and probably the Wii U to a certain extent into a casual market. And I think the casual market's sort of fading for the Wii U now, but it probably set them back in terms of their hardcore audience, and stuck two fingers up them a little bit.
Yeah, it was a fair gamble, I guess, at the time, right?
Yeah, that's it. 7th generation. Let's get it out of the way with the most talked about game on the podcast, The Last of Us. We've both got that in our top 3 list here. PS3 exclusive. I honestly don't know what else I can say without just going off for 20 minutes about how good this game is. It's been discussed multiple times. Me, you, Biff, Pipers have played it. I know everyone else that's played it. They've all loved it. Is there anything we can actually say that we haven't before about this game?
Not really, if you still haven't played it, just grab yourself a copy. Doesn't matter if it's on the older console or the newer one. It's fantastic. I think regardless if it's your type of game, I think once you start playing it,
yeah,
it's done that well that you'll enjoy it, and it'll go into your top 5, top 3. It's going to be up there for everyone, I would think.
Yeah, it's just such a fantastically polished game, and it's so the attention to detail, the writing, the story, the characters, the gameplay, it's all there. And I don't think there's anything more to say other than, as I've said before, if you've not played it, go out and find a way to play it right now. The Last of Us, PS3 or PS4, go do it. So, one of my other top 3s, The Walking Dead Season 1 by Telltale Games.
Nice, very nice.
Might seem like an odd choice to some because, graphically, it's not pushing any boundaries. It doesn't look like a 7th gen title, does it? Because you can actually play these on your mobile devices.
Yeah. I think it's on every single. Apart from maybe Nintendo, everyone in the world's got this.
Yeah, apart from Nintendo, what are they playing at? To not even have this, like a basic game in terms of like power, it's weird, isn't it? That,
yeah.
But that's another story for another day. But The Walking Dead Season 1 just manages to evoke such incredible emotion and character development. But before I go off on a tangent, you've played it. Does it surprise you that this is on my top 3 list at all?
No, not at all. Like you said about that previous game, Fahrenheit, decisions and choices and having an influence over your character, I think, are one of your favourite things in games. So, and this just does it better than anything. Your decisions have tangible influence on the characters around you and on the games and who survives and who's with you towards the end. I mean, this to me is not my type of game initially, and you were the reverse of me on some of the games on this. When you played this, it's all I heard you banging on about, and I remember I was between jobs at the time and sort of got the first one. And you know what? I found it slow. I thought, you know what? It started slow, and I was like, "What is this?" It's The Walking Dead.
About?
Yeah, is this that good? But there was something in that first chapter that just I thought, you know what? It's worth another punt. It was a few quid, wasn't it, for an episode? 4 quid or something? I know it wasn't much. And it builds and it builds and it builds, and I think by the end of it, I was almost in tears. It's fantastic, mate. I mean, you've got split seconds to make decisions that you could potentially take a couple of hours debating. You don't want these people to die, or in some cases you don't.
No.
But you've got to make these like killer decisions constantly. It's putting you in awful situations, and you care about the characters, which a lot
do you?
No, exactly, mate. I mean, most films you don't give a shit about the characters, and they're like £1 million paid actors and actresses. Here you've got like a cartoon squiggle.
Yeah,
it
was, wasn't it? It was all cell shaded graphics, so they weren't like realistic. Like you could connect them in that way, but the way that it was written and the way they built the characters was that you were attached to them.
Yeah, you think like being an adult, you might still feel a little bit embarrassed about being into video games and making that a big part of your life. But
sure,
films and books and things, they're all like regarded mediums of entertainment.
Accepted.
You've got a storyline here that is on par with the best of any film, any book, really. You're going to care about these characters. You're interested what happens. And, like those books when you're a kid where you get to turn to page 26 to dodge the dragon, you control it. That's fantastic. You direct it, essentially.
Yeah, I remember Biff describing it once, that he used to play an episode on his phone when he used to go to work on the train. He used to commute in, take like 40 minutes. And he used to get to work and feel like he'd done a day's work. He was so stressed out from like the moral decisions.
Making, yeah,
and it really is a game about the relationship between Lee and this who you control, who's actually a convicted murderer at the time, which sort of goes under the carpet, but it keeps coming up again between the group, and his relationship between with this young girl called Clementine. As I said, it's very heavy on the story, lots of dialogue choices to make, and it affects how the certain characters act towards Lee, and as we mentioned, it puts you in very difficult moral decisions that have other characters' lives at stakes, and you don't get a lot of time. You've got probably 15 seconds max to decide.
Yeah.
It cranks up the pressure. All these decisions and choices affect how the game branches out in subsequent episodes. So the impact can actually be felt of some decisions sort of one or two episodes down the line. Sometimes that'll get brought up like, oh, you shouldn't have let so and so die, and then you're like, oh fuck, I thought you'd forgotten about that, but they don't. All the characters remember what you've done. I love the freedom you get to express yourself in the conversations. I love the freedom you get to input. You get input into key storyline moments, and I love the writing, and I just love the fact that it really doesn't pull any punches. It's very, very harsh, brutal, and it's realistic in that sense of the world, how you'd expect it to be. It's so savage sometimes. Telltale Games deserve all the credit they get for this, and one of the little small features I really liked was a little breakdown you got at the end of each episode showing you what choice.
I was just going to say this, and I love the fact as well where you get the percentage split of all the gamers who've played it.
You can see whether you've been a prick, or you can see how you slot in with all the other characters.
I love that, yeah.
You'll get like, it'll say you and 43% of players decide to save such and such. And just small features like that, just being able to see whether you're in line with the masses, or it's always interesting to me. And what this game does, it completely dispels the myth that you need 1080p 60 frames per second realistic graphics or an option to have multiplayer. If you give me, or you give a player, a well written story, great character development, superb voice work as well, which has to be mentioned, and get them to genuinely buy in to what is going on, then you're on to a winner. And I backed this from day one, and I was so happy to see it get a few Game of the Year awards in 2012, and it's available on every imaginable platform, so there's no excuses for anyone out there not to play it. And it goes back to remember that little text game I mentioned in Virtuous School?
Oh yeah.
So you'll see there's like a almost a small pattern here with me. Like, if you give me choices, it will resonate with me. I'm all over it, but this is the best I've seen it done, and that's why it's in my top 3. So I'll move on to my final top 3 game, Fallout 3, which I had on the Xbox 360. Now, I honestly do not know where to start with this game. It's so big, and I managed to total up about, I think it was 73 hours in the end.
That's ridiculous.
It tracked your save, and I'll tell you what, one of the most telling things about this game is how much I loved it, is that I played it for 40 or so hours, just the first playthrough, and then they released like a 5-pack DLC pack, and I managed to get hold of that. A whole year later, I still had the games, I hadn't got rid of it, then picked it up and played another 30 hours of it.
On the DLC,
On DLC, yeah. And because it expanded the story and let it carry on. It's mental, really. There's no multiplayer element to it. It's just you and the capital wasteland, which is like a post-nuclear war version of Washington. You create your own character and you take him through this epic adventure. And again, you have influence to a certain extent over choices and decisions and dialogue choices and whatnot. And you start off being born into this world.
Yeah, I remember seeing in the beginning. This is the one where you kind of, your father or whatever.
Yeah.
You kind of end up looking a bit like him, don't you? And then you have to go out to the start of it. He goes out and you go out to find him or something.
That's it.
Yeah,
So
I remember seeing the beginning of this.
You can like change your race and whatnot, and your looks a little bit. And you're born into this thing called a vault, which is basically like a survival shelter that was set up just before this nuclear war kicks off. So all these people went and lived in there, and they've been there. I think this is set 200 years after the war. So all these people have never seen the outside world, and one of the rules is you don't leave the vault. And you grow up as a kid in there. You get like a few tutorial missions, and one of the really clever parts of it, just right at the very beginning, is that you have like a school exam. So you're wandering around, and at a certain time you've got to go to this school exam, and you have to answer multiple choice questions about survival and whatnot. And depending on what answers you give, that actually feeds into what skills and perks you start off with.
That's a very clever way of implementing those sort of things.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, it's really good. It kicks on a bit, and like you said, when you get to an adult stage, your dad ups and leaves for an unknown reason at the time, and the person who runs the place, called the overseer, is paranoid and is like, oh, you can't leave the vault, send security after you, and you have to just bin the whole vault off, get out there and search the entire wasteland. And that's where it begins. You leave the vault, and you've got this little Pip-Boy device which acts as like a map and a skill tree hub. You've got a radio station on there and other things, but apart from that, you're free to go and track down your dad, sort of follow the first clue, or just wander off and go and explore somewhere else and explore this mess of a world that's been left. And I remember I spent the first 2 hours just trying to kill these raiders in this like little derelict school. Nothing to do with the story whatsoever, but I found them, and I always wanted to take them down before trying to find my dad.
That's the mark of a good game, when you can get sidetracked like that and spend that sort of time just intrigued and seeing if it can be done.
That wasn't even a side mission. That was just literally just like a random pack of raiders that was sitting in there. There was no like real reward for that. It wasn't like a triggered side quest that you had in it. But first or third person. I mean, the third person, to be honest, is a bit poor. But you mainly play it in first person. Combat was standard sort of first person controls. Apart from the fact they had this VAT system, which basically let you pause the game mid action. And then the nearest, you could target an enemy and then choose specific body parts that you aim for. Gives you a percentage on the likelihood that it'll shot land. So it might say head 80%, and it might say body 90%. You can sort of make a choice, and then you'll shoot, and it'll do like a mini cinematic and see if you've hit it or not. That's a really good feature they've got in there. It's got like a little moral system in there, so good and bad deeds are tracked, and that changes the way people react to you. And if you've done a lot of good deeds, you'll get good dialogue choices to bring up. If you've done bad stuff, then you'll get sort of more horrible and nasty things to say. I love the soundtrack they had in it. Big, like, old school 1940s, 1950s band stuff. You could get these companions that come with you. You get quite attached to them. One of them is a little dog called Dog Meat. Like, you just found him in the wasteland. You rescue him, and then he like becomes your little companion. I got to the stage where I used to leave him back at the house because in case he died, like I didn't want to take him out on any missions in case like, a fucking monster come along and took him out. Loads of side quests, and it was the pinnacle of open world gaming. The amount of freedom you get and exploration you can do is absolutely breathtaking.
I feel like I've missed out on this. This and Skyrim are the two that I really feel like I've missed a trick with. It annoys me because they're both right up my street.
Yeah, they are fantastic.
Are there plans for a sequel?
I imagine so. Yeah, I mean, I think Bethesda Studios have got a E3 sort of slot this year, and they don't go to E3. I don't think they've had one before, so I'm hoping it's going to be announcement Fallout 4, and I can start getting excited for that. But it is just great. It's actually it's in like a unique retro futuristic setting. So although it's set in like 2277, all the ideologies and like the fashion and stuff is all from the 1940s and 50s.
Right.
It's really weird, but it's fantastic because it's not like a bog standard like normal apocalyptic survivor. It's, you know, you've got all these like weird suits that people are in, these weird like what people thought was possible with technology back then has come to life because it's, you know, and what
there's a lot of like pop culture bits, isn't there? There's like that race who like worship the bomb like in Planet of the Apes and stuff.
Yeah. And that's a good thing because that's actually one of the early quests, and you can choose to, you basically walk into this town and you see the bomb and the sheriff's like, oh, that's got to be taken down, it's dangerous. But then, like you said, there's people that are worshipping it and they're like, no, you can't disarm it. And to disarm it, you have to learn a certain skill number, and then you can eventually put the code in to disarm it. But I wandered into the bar that's there, that was inside the town, and there was this like shady character sitting in the corner, and he called me over and he's like, oh, I'll give you a house and like a shitload of caps, which was their currency, to blow if you trigger and blow the bomb up and take out the whole town. And you can actually choose there to then go, okay, mate, take the money, go back and blow this whole town up. So that's been gone from the map. Or you can like say, no, I'm not going to do it. What I actually did is, when he said that, I was like, oh, I'll come back and let you know. And I was thinking, no chance. That sheriff I mentioned, when I saw him, was like, there's a bloke in there who wants me to blow up. It's like grasped him in massively. I was like, right, I'll go and what. And as soon as I said it, he runs off, and I followed him. And I was like, yes, sheriff's going to take him down. Went in there. He sort of confronts him. Bloke gets up there and took the sheriff's head off, just absolutely blew him away, and I was like, no. took the shady character down, killed him, but then the sheriff was dead. That was it. He was gone for the whole game. I couldn't talk to him because you could like bump into him and talk to him and stuff, and he was now gone.
That's amazing.
His little kid come up to me afterwards and said, oh, my dad's died. and it just makes you feel 10 times worse. I've basically caused this by telling the sheriff, and it's brilliant. It's great. Superb game. Exploration at its best. Open world at its best. Thank you very much, Bethesda.
Nice.
Excellent. So, Mr. Adcock, your next one on the list is Gears of War 2. And I think this is a great choice, but I must ask off the bat, why Gears 2 and not 1 or 3? Because they're all pretty good.
Multiplayer aspect, I have to say.
Horde mode, or just they upped it a bit
both
more?
Horde mode and, just basically, I played Gears of War 1 co-op campaign, loved it. Yeah. But I think I was quite late to the day with that. It'd probably been out for a couple of years. I think maybe it was just in the build-up to 2 coming out, where you feel like you've got to get that done to get the storyline. Done that with my mate James. Queued up in Asda's for Gears of War 2, and I think it was basically one of the there was a bunch of games me and a whole bunch of friends, maybe 7 or 8 of us, all got. Yeah. And this for us, well, maybe in GTA 4 at the time, were the pinnacle. We all used to get on every night. They had a great campaign, great storyline. I don't want to dismiss that, because it's that was co-op as well, wasn't it? Yeah, you played that online. Yeah, I played it online. Yeah, with the same guy, and really enjoyed it. Really liked the way the story, it was clearly part of this bigger world, and you were just this little group of
cogs.
Yeah, taking on this sort of, not insects, locust. That's it. Yeah.
Army of locusts.
Army locusts. Yeah, this. You were in it. It was clearly something bigger going on. I really enjoyed it. But then it was the multiplayer aspect. We played this for hundreds of hours probably.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
so satisfying.
I don't know if I am right in saying this, but I don't remember a horde mode being around before this. I could be wrong. I'm happy for people to correct me, but this was certainly the best incarnation I've seen of it, and that was what we used to play an awful lot. It's just trying to get to, I think it's wave 50.
Wave 50. I remember being livid once because I had to sort of drop out for a minute, and they got to wave 50 and on the hardest mode and got the achievement, and I didn't get it, and I was like, right, we do it again. They were like, no.
It's too hard.
Like, no, come on, lads, that's well out of order. Getting people and just being that annoying cowboy and blowing someone's head off. Yeah, there's nothing more satisfying than that. The maps,
number 4?
I don't know, because I played 3 and
you fell asleep.
I fell asleep playing it. Yeah, triple way multi co-op. I think it wasn't a very good time for me with games. I think I'd kind of gone off them for a bit, and mate, that's definitely on my list to go back and play. Actually, I mean, I could probably pick that up for a penny, surely. I don't even know what happens at the end of the story. It's crazy. Yeah, but absolutely loved this, and I haven't really said much about it for some reason. I guess certain games stick with you, and certain games, even though you enjoyed them, they kind of fade somewhat. I only played the campaign the once. Yeah. But the multiplayer maps, the team play, everything about this was great. I love it. Yeah.
It was a great series, and I'd agree. Out of the 4 games that released on the actual platform, I'm including Judgment as well. Gears of War 2 was the pinnacle of this series. Your final game.
Yes.
Now I'm probably a bit ignorant to this one. I'm in my comment here might not be correct, but this seems like my sort of Fahrenheit. Like a little bit out of left field.
Yeah, absolutely.
It probably comes a bit of, not as shock, but it's not going to be as well known as some of the games we've spoken about. It drew sort of positive reviews, but definitely didn't get universal acclaim. And as I said, I must admit myself, I'd never played it. Have I missed an absolute gem here in Darksiders?
Darksiders, yeah, it is, mate. It's exactly that. A little gem in the rough. It's not to everyone's. I think you get a type of game, a type of film. Your decisions, you're always going to gravitate towards them and probably see them in a better light than someone who doesn't like that. This for me it's Zelda 101 with really a better storyline. Grown up Zelda essentially, but with real a good meaty storyline. So the concept is very Zelda-esque. You've got the overworld, where you'll have to find items and speak to NPCs, and then there's 7 or 8 dungeons to go in. It's all set around the apocalypse and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. There's a big conspiracy, and the 4 horsemen are told to go to Earth. The apocalypse is starting, but it turns out that someone's triggered this early. You play as War, who's the only horseman that appears and sort of realizes his brothers aren't there and knows something's wrong, gets stitched up by heaven and hell. They want to sort of kill him then, and it goes into this whole sort of biblical fantasy adventure. You got Mark Hamill playing a demon who accompanies you through the adventure. It's amazing. It's got a storyline that it drives you forward. You want to know what happens. It's got great characters that you engage with. Amazing dungeons. There's one that's very Portal-esque. Like, fantastic game. It works really well. It's very, very similar to Zelda. You've even got a horse at halfway through the game. I don't know how much you've seen of this or what you know of it, but
not a great deal. But I mean, it's maybe got Devil May Cry combat. Is it like more of a hacky slash? Is it than what a Zelda is, or how does it work?
So. Yeah. I mean, it runs. You can upgrade your weapons. I guess it is kind of hack and slashy kind of combat. But the bosses are like puzzles in themselves. You have to figure out weak spots and how to beat them.
Yeah.
There's thousands of games on every console that I've not played, open-handedly. But you look forward to certain games, and hopefully most of the time they live up to expectations. Often they don't because they're overhyped. This one came in under the radar for me and a few mates. In my opinion, it is fantastic. It stuck with me. I've played a lot of games on the Xbox 360. This is, again, for me and my friends, we often talk about this one. It's like the best word of mouth games. This one spread amongst our mates, and it wasn't just me. Everyone I know enjoyed it. Everyone loves the story, loves the characters you meet.
I said it was completely off my radar, but it's on your top 3, so it's beating out quite a lot of others of your honourable mentions. I'll kick off with mine again, just go through those particular bits. So I've got Gears of War 2, like you've already gone through that. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
Nice.
One of the games that changed the online multiplayer for everyone. BioShock Infinite. BioShock 1 and 2 I thought were okay, but I really, for whatever reason, Infinite was better for me. I actually hated it for the first 5 hours.
I remember you saying this, crazy.
And ready to drop it, and I was like, I rented it, and I was like, I could get another game here, and I thought, I'll try and finish it. And then about 6 hours in, it just clicked, and I could not stop playing it, and I followed it all the way through to the end. Great story, and for me, that was the pinnacle of the BioShock games. Mass Effect 2 in particular, that was very, very close to getting into the top 3, but it didn't quite make it in the end. The universe they've got there is so vast. I've never known any game to go in that much detail, create such a new universe, and give you so much information and backstory about everything that's happened in it, but then still carry through with great gameplay, gunplay, again, dialogue and decisions come into it. You've got all that stuff, and it's right up my alley, and I'm looking forward to a Mass Effect 4. Batman, Arkham Knight, not Arkham Knight, it's not come out, Arkham City rather, and Arkham Asylum, great Batman games, probably the best Batman games we've had. Skyrim, again from Bethesda, so beaten out by Fallout 3, but still a great game in its own right. Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, nice. Missed that as well. I've not got that. I've never played it. Unbelievable.
Have you not?
No, it's going to have to...
There's rumblings of a remake, but so you might have to get hold of it on that, but that's a great spin-off of the GTA series, completely different direction, but they nail it. The Uncharted series... Oh my goodness, 1 to 3. How many good games are there in this generation? Again, they could have easily been on the top 3. Assassin's Creed 2 I've picked out as my favourite Assassin's Creed game. The story of Ezio definitely carries it through, and it's a massive upgrade on 1 in terms of the gameplay. Dead Space.
Great one, yeah.
Probably, yeah. I'm trying to think back. It's probably my favourite horror game of that generation, if I had to pick one.
Can't believe that didn't get done earlier. Resident Evil in space, it's done. Aliens, it's
with good mechanics though, no tank.
Correct, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Do you ever remember Skate?
Skate? Like a realistic Tony Hawk.
That killed Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Once that come out, and as much as I love Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, when his Skate coming on, I was like, oh my god, this is infinitely better, but you can do less stuff because it's realistic.
Yeah,
I fucking love that game. Final one, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas.
Loved it. Yeah, great shout.
I like the campaign, but the co-op and online was the best. It was like 2 bullets and you're dead. And there's a particular mode called Terrorist Hunt, where you and I think 4 mates would take on like 40 or 50 bots, like inside like a stronghold of sorts, and you'd work together, and you could obviously infiltrate from different areas and whatnot. I remember me and Biff used to fucking adore this game, and we'd play together in like a pair of us. But I remember this one time, this guy got into our chat room or into our lobby and was like, "Oh, mate, we only want to play with 2 of us." And he was like, "No way, I'm not leaving." I was like, "Oh, for God's sake!" But the good thing about this game is friendly fire was always on. As soon as the game spawned, I stood next to him, and then I threw a grenade at his feet, walked away, and all you saw was like his character looked down, and it just went poof, and just absolutely blew up in his face. And me and Biff, I don't think we've laughed so much in all of our lives playing a video game. It's just the funniest thing in the entire world, just watching him just look down, and it just blowing up on him. So many good memories from Rainbow Six. Underrated as well, in my opinion. That's all my honourable mentions. I'll hand over to you for your final bits.
Christ, I think you got them all in there. Well, what did I play on the Wii? I liked Twilight Prince. I like both the Zeldas, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Have them. Mario Kart Wii was pretty decent, and Smash Brothers as well. All the ones you ever mentioned on Xbox, there's not many, is there? Lara Croft Tomb Raider, really liked.
That's good.
Portal, I played that recently, loved it. Portal 2, that was actually. I've not played the first one, but I think 2's the superior one. Christ, there's not much else there, is there? PlayStation 3, all I ever played was Last of Us, which we've already spoke about numerous times. So I think that's it, really.
Well, that's it then.
Done.
We've completed our journey through the greatest games of all time. I've had a great time going through, over these memories of the last few weeks and whatnot. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit down that it's come to an end. But I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Going through these games,
it's not been easy, has it, mate? It's fucking hard. I think it's hard. It's
such a subjective thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know which games I like, especially from the older generations. But trying to actually then pick out 25 years later, what you like. Because I have played some of these games numerous times, and I have a lot of my old consoles, but it's not a film. You're not just going to go and pop it on for an hour and a half and play it.
No.
I found it really difficult, if I'm honest, but I hope we've given a good account of it. I'm happy with all my choices.
Yeah, same here. I can't have any discrepancies of what I've chosen.
If you had to put your neck on the line, Desert Island, they're all sort of washing away. You can only save one. Could you do it? Which one would you pick?
I'm reluctant to, only because it's too difficult, and I think it goes against what we've been doing.
Yeah.
We said from the start, this is a way of looking at every game individually. It's at its time.
Game against game in its own generation, rather than I do agree with that. So that's a good point.
That is my sort of get out clause.
That is fair enough.
Yeah, I think what we should mention is this is a purely subjective look at me and yours favourite or greatest games of all time. There are classics like Metroid Prime, Soul Calibur, the Super Mario Galaxy series, and Halo, which I've played now, but we've missed off our list.
Mate, I'm a Nintendo man. I've never touched a Metroid game, let alone some of the ones you said on the 360. The Skyrim and Fallout, and then the Dark Souls games on the PlayStation. I mean, Christ,
sure,
do you know what I mean?
Again, that's one, isn't it?
There's hundreds of really, really highly rated games that I've not even sniffed at.
No.
So
I do think that gaming's one of the more subjective forms of entertainment, and that's why I love it. I love giving my own opinion on what I like, but more so, I think I love hearing about what others think about games that you've played and digging down to what influences their opinions. This whole process was never going to be an objective list. It's impossible to do that with games. And I think what we've done is given people a recap of our gaming memories, and hopefully these memories resonate with some people out there and brings out some of their greatest moments. But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't resonate with some people? If that's the case, then how about you get in contact with us? I think we would love to hear about what your favourite games from each generation were. So you can tweet us at DimpDigital. You can like our Facebook page and post to us, which is facebook.com/DimpDigital, or you can drop us an email directly, dimpdigitalmedia@gmail.com. Get in touch and get involved and let us know what your favourite games were, and maybe we'll discuss them on some future episodes. And make sure you do not forget to check out our Dimp Digital YouTube channel. We've got some great video content going up on there all the time. But that's it for now. Game over. It's goodbye from Tom.
See you later, buddy.
And it's goodbye from me, Joe Appleyard. Thanks for your time, and ta-da.
Right, hang on, mate.
Fucking hell, you're not still having a piss, are you?
No, I'm getting my shit painting clothes off, so I want to be all like clean. That's done. It's taken care of. Then I want to do that. Shit, PlayStation headset on.
Sort of a vibration going on.
Vibration gone because it's now off charge. So now I'm ready to podcast, mate.
Oh yeah, just quickly.
I literally look like, don't put this on the end, even though I know you're going to. I'm sitting in my pants. I look like a big bald Prometheus sort of like alien with a shit headset on. It's ridiculous.
Have you not got a shirt on?
Well, no, because I've just taken all that shit painting clothes off. So I thought,
have you got socks on?
No, just boxers.
Right, fine. So if you had the socks and just boxers, that would be pathetic.
No. Yeah, I'm not going to have a shower after this, like, 'cause I've got paint all over my hands and stuff.
You're not going to.
Quick question, random. You don't know anyone who can wallpaper, do you? Like one wall. Like, doesn't have to be good.
I'm sure I could do that, but not to any sort of decent. No, probably. But the trouble is, they're sort of big fish, and they don't want to come around and do one wall.
Yeah, it would literally just be as a favour. I know. I'm having this problem everywhere. It'd just be like.
Couldn't you just Google it or something?
Well, I could end up paying, just getting a DIY geese around, but like it seems a bit mental. Like someone must know someone who can just pop round and do a wall and give a tenner and go thanks.
Are they going to help a big bald Prometheus in his pants? Though that's the question that you've got to ask yourself. And that's
I'm assuming I would be clothed when the transaction goes down, mate.
Well, I'm just saying, if they hear this, they definitely won't be. That bit's getting cut.
Have you seen extras where Les Dennis is like, it cuts to his changing room and he's on the phone to Heat Celebrity spotted section. He goes, just seen Les Dennis in New Bond Street shopping. They go, that he can afford much around there. He goes, well, he was spending a shitload of cash, so put that in. Put that in. It's fucking brilliant. Such a good episode.